Hey everyone, we're all different, right? It's what makes the world so interesting. But have you ever stopped and wondered why those differences can sometimes lead to tension or misunderstanding or even straight up unfairness? Well, today we're going to trace that exact path. We'll be looking at some examples from India, but trust me, the human story we're about to unpack is something that happens everywhere. Let's dive in.
So yeah, this is the big question, right? It's the core of what we're talking about today. We've all seen it, maybe we've even felt it. Those moments when someone gets judged or left out just because they're different. How does that even happen? What's the chain reaction that turns a simple human difference into real, actual unfairness? Let's break it all down. First things first, let's just talk about what diversity actually is. It's this incredible mix of languages, beliefs, foods, you name it, all the traditions that make up our world. And to really see it in action, there's probably no better place to look than a country like India. So what's this number? That is the number of mother tongues spoken in India. Over 1,600. Now, add to that the fact that every major world religion is practiced there, and there are more than 100 different styles of dance. It's just a truly stunning tapestry of human culture.
But here's the thing. As amazing as diversity is, there's this deep, almost instinctual part of us that likes to stick with what's familiar. We often feel safer, more comfortable with people who look, talk, and think the way we do. And this comfort zone, well, it can lead to some pretty serious problems.
And that leads us right into two really powerful kind of like mental shortcuts that our brains use when we meet people who are different. They're called prejudice and stereotypes. They sound similar, and they're definitely related, but they work in very different ways. Okay, let's tackle prejudice first. At its absolute core, prejudice is a negative feeling. It's when we judge someone as being less than or inferior just because of the group they belong to. Could be their religion, where they're from, even the accent they have. It's a gut reaction based on a label, not on the actual person standing in front of you.
This is a perfect example of how it works in the real world. I mean, look at some of these common opinions. People in villages are seen as backward or superstitious. Meanwhile, people in cities get labeled as money-minded, cunning, and lazy. These are just negative judgments, prejudices that we form about millions of people we have never even met.
All right, now for the next piece of this puzzle, stereotypes. So if prejudice is a negative feeling, a stereotype is a fixed belief. It's when we create one single super simplified image and then we apply it to every single person in a group. It completely erases everything that makes them an individual. Gender is such a classic example of this. Society builds these neat little boxes for us. So think about this statement, they don't cry. Most of us, without even thinking, would probably stick that in the boys column. But why? From the time they're little, boys are often told things like, be brave, boys don't cry. They learn to push that emotion down. It's a learned stereotype, a belief we force on them, not something they're born with.
So let's just nail this down, because it's super important. Prejudice is a negative feeling you have about a group. A stereotype is a fixed belief or image you have about that group. And both of them are dangerous for the exact same reason. They stop us from seeing people as the unique, complex individuals they actually are.
Okay, so we have these negative feelings and these fixed ideas floating around in our heads. But what happens when they escape? What happens when those thoughts leave our minds and start to affect how we treat people in the real world?
Well, that's when we get discrimination. Discrimination is the action. It's when you treat people differently and unfairly because of your prejudices and stereotypes. It's stopping someone from getting a job or living in a certain neighborhood or even drinking from the same water source, all because of the group they belong to.
You can almost see it as a dangerous path, can't you? It starts with a negative feeling, that's prejudice. That feeling gets backed up by a fixed belief, that's the stereotype. And then that belief fuels an unfair action, and that is discrimination. It's a three-step ladder straight to inequality. Let's put this to the test with a real-world case study to see just how damaging this can be. There's a stereotype you hear sometimes that people in the Muslim community aren't interested in educating their daughters. But is that actually true?
Well, when you actually look at the data, the story completely flips. Studies have found that the biggest barrier preventing girls from going to school wasn't their religion at all. It was poverty. In places like the state of Kerala, where the government made it easier and cheaper for poor families to send their kids to school, attendance for girls from all communities, including Muslim families, just shot up. So the stereotype wasn't just misleading, it was flat out wrong. To really understand the deep personal pain that discrimination causes, there's nothing more powerful than a true story.
And this is the experience of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who would go on to become one of the greatest leaders in India's history.
So I want you to picture this. The year is 1901. A 9-year-old boy named Bhimrao Ambedkar is at a train station with his brothers. They're all dressed up in their best clothes, excited because they're going to meet their father. They're just kids, you know, filled with that special kind of joy you only get on a journey.
The station master saw them waiting and felt sorry for them. He assumed they were Brahmin children who'd been left behind. At first, he just saw them as individuals, well-dressed, well-spoken kids. His initial reaction was kind. There was no prejudice.
But then, the station master asked them who they were. And young Bhimrao, without a second thought, answered honestly. He said they were Mahars, a community that was considered untouchable back then. And in that single moment, with that single word, everything changed. The man's kindness, it just vanished. It was replaced by what Ambedkar later called a strange feeling of repulsion.
And it gets worse. The station master left, and the boys tried to hire a bullock cart to finish their journey. But not one of the cart drivers would take them. Even when the children offered to pay double the normal price, they all refused. They were afraid of being polluted. Think about that. The prejudice in their minds was so strong, so powerful, that it led to a direct act of discrimination that left these young boys stranded and heartbroken.
So, stories like this one, these incredibly painful experiences, they didn't just disappear. They fueled a nationwide struggle. Leaders like Dr. Ambedkar fought not just for freedom from foreign rule, but for freedom from the deep, painful inequalities within their own society.
And when India finally became its own nation, these leaders wrote a powerful promise right into its foundation, the Constitution. It declared that all people are equal. It legally abolished the practice of untouchability. It guaranteed everyone the freedom to practice their religion, and it made sure that government jobs were open to all. It was a blueprint for a just society. But, and this is maybe the most important takeaway from all of this, a document, no matter how powerful, doesn't automatically create equality. The Constitution laid out the vision, but making that vision a reality, that's an ongoing struggle. It's a value that every single person and every single generation has to keep fighting for. It just doesn't happen on its own.
And so we're left with this question. If equality isn't some destination we just arrive at one day, but more like a bridge that we are constantly building, what part do we play? How do we, in our own lives, pick up the tools and keep striving for it?